We're going to have to figure out how to feed people. And I'm talking about feed people outside of your immediate group. And not just figure out, do it on some sort of continuous basis. I'm not talking about soup every day, but soup a couple, 3 times a week in your area of operations. The gentleman who spoke before about the insurgency in India, we talked a little bit about hearts and minds. Don't ever think that hungry people aren't really dangerous to you and your family. They are really dangerous on a multitude of levels. One, they're pretty easy to turn. 2, they might not even need external help in turning. They might just turn of their own accord. With that time-honored saying, I've got to do what I got to do for my family. And if you and your family get in between them, that's probably going to be some ungoodness. And I'm not saying don't do ungoodness to them. Just be prepared to eliminate the need for that or reduce the need for that. What are you going to need to do that? You're going to need recipes. Anybody who hasn't cooked en masse, my first jobs were always in banquet restaurant kind of stuff, so we might cook for 50, we might cook for 200 the next day. You can't scale up beefaroni for 4. Just multiply it by 25 and get 100 decent meals out of it, 100 decent servings. You got to start looking at this first off. So once you get recipes, and I'm talking about real basic recipes. Who here remembers the recipe for stone soup? So others. So what is the recipe for stone soup, Jim?
Get everybody else to contribute. They're good.
Exactly. You brought your stone. I got the stone. That's my pot. That's my part of the game. But I'm not talking about complex stuff, but I'm talking about something that's going to put some calories, maybe even some fat into some people's bellies, and take them off that knife edge of desperation where they were thinking about talking to people, whether it's true or not, that you're one of those bad people, you're one of those domestic terrorists. You want to take that desperation from them. So you got to get recipes, you next got to get the tools. Just like you can't scale up a recipe for 4 to 100 or 200. You can't do it on the cookware needed for 4. Or worse yet, Boy Scout cookware or Boy Scout level cookware that each scout or person has. You got to be thinking about this stuff in advance. And it's not real hard. You can go to a used restaurant equipment supply. Believe me, there are more restaurants going out of business now than ever before. You pick up stuff dirt cheap and it just stores away and it can become a container for food or anything else. But you're going to need that big pot. You're going to need that tri-pot for over the fire. You're going to need some way of having a cleaning station. Not only a cleaning station for the people that come in and their gear, but you're going to need a cleaning station for your people that are serving food. Because if they had fecal matter underneath their fingernails, guess what? Everybody gets fecal matter into their food. And so instead of helping the people in the community, y'all gave them the galloping trots. And their hearts and minds will follow, but not in the direction that you want. So sanitation is a part of your preparation as well. You need stores. You're going to need more rice and beans than you ever thought possible. You're going to need big restaurant level cans. You're going to need a bunch of fat. It's pretty easy to scrounge on rice and beans, but you're going to need fat. And this is fat and rice and beans, proteins and carbohydrates beyond that which you put aside for your people. Easy enough to do now. Might have to give up some cable or give up, that next new toy or whatever. Or you might have to live a little leaner now so that you can live a lot less lean later on. But one of the purposes of money is a store of wealth, and I can't think of too many better stores of wealth than 50-pound sacks of rice and beans. One other thing that you're going to need, come on in, if those of you who've got a wind blowing in here, so just come on in and try and get out of the rain. One of the other things you're going to need to do, once you get all these other piece parts, you're going to have to practice. There's a church over in Murphy right downtown that has soup lunch every Friday. Working with your church and maybe even your local fire department might be a way of avoiding having to buy those mass feeding tools. But you're going to need to practice. Just like nobody gets to run their radios confidently after the bad thing happens, and you're there malnourished with diarrhea trying to figure out something technical. You want to do that in advance. You want to do your feeding call them community dinners, you can feed the homeless and do whatever you want, but practice in advance. Also, as part of your S1 functions, your personnel functions, industrial scale cooks are really important people. People who have cooked at that scale before, cooked and cleaned at that scale. Because back to the stone soup thing, you can boil soup and kill pretty much anything in it, which means there are a lot of things you can put in that. Whether it's vegetables that are a little off, meat that's a little off, it's going to be fine once you boil it up. But you got to have practice on it. Let me run a couple other ideas by you. I may have mentioned this before. Frankly, in October, I didn't think we'd get to meet again. I thought we were on the cusp of something unprecedentedly bad in this continent. I really thought Ebola was going to slip, and I'm grateful that it did not. I'm grateful that we can meet again. But whether I mentioned it or not before, the movement is pretty good on getting people to understand the need and the gear for tactical combat casualty care, what I call putting a bandage on it. It's not real good, at least that I've seen, on what do you do after you do that. Basically, there are two steps you got to do it. You got to get them to whatever passes for definitive care in your area, and that may be veterinarian Bob. That might be dentist Earl. That might be former medic Jane. But whatever is your definitive care, you got to get them there. And then, and this is the hard part, and this is the pitch that I'm making here, you got to have some sort of covert convalescent care. Like we needed more C's, right? So we got TC3, but covert convalescent care. Because again, let's get real blunt and real here. If I get shot doing something that the powers that be don't want me to be doing, I can't go to traditional medical care. I can't go to a doctor. I can't go to a hospital. I can't go to the doc in the box. I'm either fixing it my own, or trusted people are going to help me fix it, or I'm going to die of it. That's just the hard, cold reality. So I would argue that it behooves folks, as you think about your communities, to do with the people that can't go into the system. And you can't go into the system for a couple reasons. Number one, there's going to be a police report filed, even today, right? You know, happy times, these are the good old days, right? Even happy times, there's going to be a police report, there's going to be a bunch of questions asked. Later on, those police maybe wear in different outfits and be a little bit more persuasive in their interrogation. Also, the people that bring you into those facilities are going to be part of that witness chain that you just don't want to reveal. Finally, do you think, because I know this is never could happen here because Lee Greenwood assures me of it, but do you think that it is at least remotely possible in the near future here in North America that people might use your political affiliations to ration medical care and access to medical care to you? I think that's just crazy talk. I think you just need to put on your tinfoil hat and just be done with that. But the reality is, you are going to need a place to get patched up, and you're going to need a place to heal them. Everybody talks about kinetic injuries. You know what's going to kill most people? Most people, what's that? Infection and GI, bad food, bad water stuff.
Well, that's infection also.
Oh, exactly. That's why I agree with you. Whatever the type of infection, what are you going to need? You're going to need time to heal up, and you're going to need some place where you're not out in the general population healing up for a couple reasons. One, you don't want to catch things that they have that they're strong enough to fight off while your immune system is compromised. And you also don't want to be spreading, I don't know, MRSA to your friends and family. Again, hearts and minds, right? Making sure they're moving in the right direction. But convalescent covert care is something that the movement needs to think a lot more on and work a lot more on. Because it's going to be up in the attic of that building over there, or in a little shed like that, or under somebody's, crawl space. And you're going to have them be as comfortable and as sanitary as they can be while they heal up, and by the way, get the nutritious food that they need for their systems to heal so that they can come back online.